Hi, I'm Elizabeth Ryan, coming to you from NAEM's Environmental Women's Leadership Conference here in Washington, D.C. I'm standing here with Susan Eisenhower, president of the Eisenhower Group. You just delivered a very riveting opening keynote presentation here at the event where you talked about the crisis of leadership that our country faces. Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, I think the crisis of leadership exists in this country as defined by the American people, who are constantly talking about the fact that we don't have any leaders. I think we have many people who aspire to be leaders, but leadership requires making a commitment to a set of ideas and to promote those ideas in a way that show the way for others, and we have a very complicated environment where it's hard for people who want to make that commitment to talk directly with people. The new electronic age helps a lot in the sense that people can be mobilized, but most Americans have to remain open, I think, to different ideas because we have we're at a very critical point in our nation's history where we need to make some decisions, and we need to be able to find a way to mobilize people around a set of ideas.
You mentioned in your talk that a lot of smart, ambitious people sort of fall victim to this notion of becoming a careerist as opposed to a leader. What's the difference?
Well, I think there is self-sacrifice and service embedded in the idea of leadership. And this means even being willing to take the lumps if they come. And a lot of people are, focused primarily on themselves and their families in building a career and in doing well. But leadership requires really, I think, adherence to an issue or something larger than oneself. And it doesn't mean that those leaders aren't out there, but we've got to create a respectful environment in which those leaders, those would-be leaders, are able to come forward.
What are some of the attributes of a good leader?
Well, I think there are many attributes of leaders, but I think there's a big difference between occupying a leadership position and being a leader. And I think probably the most important element of leadership is showing moral courage, moral and intellectual courage. We have too much of a tendency to get along, to try and make everybody happy. But when we're in an environment like this, we really have to frame everything in a broader way that helps Americans think through what kind of a country we want to live in and what we want our place to be in the world. And if we want to be a leader in the world, then there are a number of things we're going to have to do to retain our leadership position. Leadership is not handed to you; it has to be won.
Now, you are the granddaughter of Dwight D. Eisenhower, and in your talk you mentioned a few of the lessons that you learned from your grandfather with regards to how he comported himself in his public and in his private life. Could you share some of those with the audience?
Well, I'd be brief about this, but I think he had a tremendous capacity to get people to work together, and he had to manage some very strong personalities during the war and during his presidency. I think he had a lot of emotional intelligence about how to handle controversial issues where other powerful people were involved. Sometimes that requires holding back and allowing others to win a few battles. I don't mean, I should say, intellectual battles. And sometimes it requires pressing your own position and fighting for that all the way to the end. I think he was a genius at knowing how to manage that.
How about managing his own emotions?
I think he got very good at that too, and I think to the extent that we understand that he had a temper, it was unusual when one actually saw it. But one could feel that he was a man of powerful conviction and thought, and he had all sorts of tricks for managing what I call his inner space.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your reflections today.
Good, thank you.